Está começando mais um episódio do Torá com Fritas, o podcast kasher do conteúdo judaico. Eu sou Moretel Hotz, um historiador e hebraísta no seu caminho rabínico.
Eu sou Angela Goldstein, orientalista e mergulhadora. E vocês vão já notar que o episódio de hoje está um pouquinho diferente dos demais, porque esse é o nosso segundo episódio em inglês, já que mais uma vez a gente tem a oportunidade de ter um convidado que não fala português. Mas eu não falo inglês, não vou entender. Muita calma nessa hora. Para quem não estiver disposto a encarar uma hora de podcast em outra língua, eu vou fazer a transcrição e tradução do episódio e enviar para os apoiadores no Torá e depois vou subir no nosso site assim que ele estiver no ar também. Então, sem mais delongas, vamos ao tema e ao convidado. Hoje a gente vai falar sobre antissemitismo, mas não de uma maneira acadêmica, como a gente já fez em outros episódios anteriores. A ideia hoje é abordar como o antissemitismo afeta a comunidade judaica de maneira individual, um pouco coletiva também, mas principalmente individual. E como isso vem afetando desde 7 de outubro de 2023. Isso tudo em termos de saúde mental. Então, para isso a gente convidou o Luis René, que é enfermeiro psiquiátrico em Los Angeles, nos Estados Unidos. Então, vamos lá. So now we'll switch to English. For those of you who don't speak any Portuguese and have listened to me babbling up until now, I'm Angela Goldstein, and I'll just briefly introduce myself. I've been co-hosting the podcast for over 4 years now, and aside from this gig, I work with the land registry in Brazil, and I'm also a certified professional scuba diver. And on to Theo, my partner in crime for the past 4.5 years.
Yeah, I am Theo. I am a historian and also a Hebraist, and I lived in Israel for 6 years studying for the rabbinate. Briefly, I should get my ordination.
Yes. And to talk about today's topic and how anti-Semitism takes a huge toll on the Jewish community's mental health, we've invited Luis René, who's a psychiatric nurse in Los Angeles in the United States, and I'll kindly ask him to introduce himself.
Angela, Theo, thank you for having me today. Future Rabbi Hotz. A little bit about myself. Yes, I'm Luis Rene Carrillo. I am a Salvadoran Jew. I was born in America. My mom immigrated from El Salvador. And as you said, I'm a registered nurse and I work in emergency psychiatry in the emergency department. I'm currently working on my doctorate to be a psychiatric nurse practitioner. Well, I'll be conducting therapy, prescribing medications, fun stuff. I am also a Jewish professional. I work for an organization called Jutina Iko, which is an organization concerning Latin Jewry in North America. I can go on and on about myself, but we're here to talk about us and anti-Semitism and mental health, which, as we spoke before, is my bread and butter. So I'm happy and excited to get into it.
Thank you so much for accepting your invitation and for joining us today, Liz. So, as I said before in Portuguese when we started recording, we have long on the podcast discussed what anti-Semitism is and what it is not. We have episodes on the protocols of the elders of Zion and whether is anti-Zionism, anti-Semitism, are they interchangeable, and how does anti-Semitism manifest in the political left as well as in the political right. So we have extensively covered very academically what it is. But since October 7th, 2023, we have seen like a rampant rise of anti-Semitism in Brazil, where it was actually quite well hidden in the past years. And I could assume the same in the United States as well. And so with that in mind, what we thought about discussing today, and that's why we have René over, is to talk about how does it impact Jewish people on a more individual level and a personal level rather than an academic level. The thing is, when I invited René, we had a brief conversation before we sat down to record this. And I remembered telling him, how can we tell whether something is anti-Semitic from a very personal point of view rather than an academic point of view? And it reminded me of a Brazilian soap opera. And for those American listeners, just so you know, heads up about Theo and I, we are both soap opera buffs. We are very proficient in Brazilian soap operas.
Proficient, that's a nice word.
Aren't we? And we're scholars on the theme, if you will. There was a while ago a teenager aimed soap opera, and one of the characters, she was, I don't know, 16, 17, and she's a black girl, and she's trying for a scholarship in a private school in Brazil, and she suffers racism on the process of doing the tests and being admitted into the school and not. And she comes home upset because she can't quite put her finger on whether what happened to her was racism or not, but she just knows that she feels hurt. And she gets home and she talks to her grandmother, and the grandmother sees she's unhappy and asks what's happened. And she said, well, this happened, and this person was rude to me. And the grandmother says, do you think, like, was it racist? Did she say something racist to you? And the girl says, I'm not sure. How can I know whether something is racist? And then the grandmother points to her own chest area, and she says, you know, if it hurts like between your chest and your stomach, if it physically hurts you in this area, it was racism. And it's never left my mind, because personally speaking, this is where it hurts in me when anti-Semitism happens. Sometimes you don't have a very quick response to this was anti-Semitic because of that, but your body feels it. And that's when I'd like to start asking René, because you told me about trauma and how that's passed on to us. So I'd like for you to pick up from here.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that with the listeners, because when you said that, it's just emotional. Even now, I just feel it, because the idea of a child, I mean, the United States has a long history of racism, and many countries across the world do in their own way. I think the US is one of the most youngest, right? Like, this is a country that was formed in 1776, and slavery lasted for 250 years. So it's very much alive right now, especially with the political climate. And just imagining a child and hearing stories of comrades and peers and colleagues of what it means to feel that. Like, a child who experiences racism is heartbreaking. So when you told me that, children are the future, right? I work in mental health, I work in Jewish education, and just children are so pure. And that is such a beautiful introduction. As sad as it is, because we can't skip around it, anti-Semitism is not something that is good. It's the most ancient evil. Like, in terms of like modern day society, like, this is something we talk about. And what you're talking about is like, you're filling a knowledge gap. Right now, what my first degree, I have 2 bachelor's degree, is in modern Jewish studies. And I studied that, like everything you mentioned, like I studied that. And then we try and pass that on to lay people. And I think there's important to have a competency of that. But the knowledge gap here is what you feel in the heart. And it's really surrounded about trauma and discrimination. Right? We don't have to say, that discrimination and anti-Semitism are the same thing, but there is an overlap. Anti-Semitism is a type of discrimination that is very unique. It's very dangerous, and it's been around longer than any other form of discrimination. It's been well studied. And the Native Americans describe this pain and this is for me how I felt it, is as a soul wound, something you feel in your soul. And for me, this became very relevant, talking after October 7th and experience anti-Semitism and witnessing anti-Semitism on an increased rate it's like, what is this pain I'm feeling? And I'm not saying like Jewish pain is the same as Native pain who lost their land, but there is this feeling of like, there's this deep soul pain. And the area you're talking about is like right here, right? Like I'm not into like chakras or anything. Like I don't know it that well, but I'm sure there's something there. So yeah, like the trauma, I do work in trauma. I work in emergency psychiatry. I do work in outpatient psychiatry, and we call this trauma-informed care, like providing care. But what's fascinating, and to me, I need to talk about this because my conversation with you showed me that, yeah, I'm in my echo chamber, my ivory tower of a university talking about this. Most people don't know what trauma looks like. And for me, it's easy to say trauma is inherited. And I pause because it's such a wild concept. Like, how is trauma inherited? Because trauma is inherited because when we feel trauma, discrimination, when we're feeling persecution, when we're feeling survival, things happen to our body. Cortisol is released. Endorphins are always elevated to the point where, like, yeah, if you're always under threat, such as families of Holocaust survivors, their fight or flight responses are always activated. And that affects their body, such as maybe having high blood pressure for a long period of time. How does that manifest through like inheriting that? Well, it affects DNA. And what is DNA? I can get into it. I'm not. DNA is essentially just the instructions on how to make a human. In the context of this conversation, there's more than just human DNA. But when someone experiences that level of trauma, it affects affects our DNA. The instructions are kind of modified, be like, oh, because your body's in such a state of fight or flight. And then what's inherited is how easy it is or the prevalence of health issues. There's a lot of studies in America, in the United States of America, of people of color, especially Black people and Black women, having higher rates of chronic illness. And it's not that they're unhealthy. There's so many, it's multifactorial, but they are more vulnerable because the DNA has been programmed, because you come from a line of people who have been persecuted. So that's the United States example. Look at the Jewish example, right? Like, how is trauma inherited? I mean, we've already have inherited, especially among the Ashkenazi Jewry community, of chronic illness. I'm thinking of Tay-Sachs disease. Some people have Crohn's disease. Like, it's a thing that's physical, but how does it manifest into mental health? Your mental health can be affected because you could be more easily prone to depression, to substance use, to generalized anxiety disorder, to personality disorder, to possibly other psychotic disorders. It's mind-boggling and it's frightening because it's like, whoa, like, is this my parents' fault? Like, it's not. We don't choose our parents' circumstances. We can't choose that our families escaped civil war, escaped persecution in the Holocaust, like escaped to like North Africa, wherever in the world they're in the multiple diasporas. We can't control that, but trauma is inherited in that regard. And especially if you're a woman, if you think about it, when you're in the womb as a woman, you're born with the number of eggs that you're going to produce for the rest of your life. Wild. Like, you're born with that. So it's the mother, it's the daughter in the womb, and it's the eggs inside that fetus. There are 3 generations in one human body through the female. And my partner is a student rabbi. If that isn't spiritual, I don't know what to tell you, Theo. Like, I'm like that to me is beautiful. Like, it's to me, when I think about that, Hashem just connected women in 3 lines in one body. That is just beautiful. On the flip side, like, there's a lot being carried there by humans, by our women. And yeah, that is the trauma. And I can talk all about it, but I think we're here to talk about more than just it is. And what I'm trying to say is that there's anti-Semitism on the educational side, right? The scholastic side. We need to understand that. But what about the heart pain? What about the feeling? How does that manifest into my life? And yeah, like, I'm gonna bring it back to either of you. It's like, how did that show up for you? And how can we talk about that in a way that's productive for you, for society, and for your listeners?
And what do we do with that as people? And I think about Theo when it comes to that, because he's a rabbi only waiting to have his ceremony, his ordination ceremony to happen. And people who are suffering anti-Semitism and need some kind of help and guidance with that will turn to a rabbi asking for said help, spiritual help. And this person, as a rabbi, as a Jew, is also experiencing anti-Semitism. So on the one hand, it's probably a person who is more fit to understand what's going on, because on a personal level, you can relate to that person. But what if you are not doing so well yourself with everything that's going on in the world? Because there is no way that it doesn't affect you. Some people tend to think of religious workers as some kind of people who are not touched by mundane stuff, but they also feel hunger, thirst, anger, sleep, and everything like that. So how do you, taking your experience into account, how do you factor that with everything that's also affecting you when you need to offer help and guidance to someone?
That's why we always say in rabbinical schools, a rabbi needs another rabbi and a psychologist. That's for
I love
sure.
that.
That's for sure. Because it's nearly impossible to bear all of this stuff, attending people and listen to people and being there completely to people. It's the most difficult work in the rabbinical work. That's insane. The amount of pressure and pain and sadness. There are plenty of difficulties in being a rabbi. You can be at your synagogue in the morning, celebrating a bar mitzvah or a bat mitzvah. All is joy, and then you go straight to the cemetery because you have to bury some people and you have to receive the
grieving family.
the grieving families and give support. And then you go back to your work and then you attend a person that, I don't know, just lost his parents or is in his way to lose a parent. And there's all this history. And my mother was a Holocaust survivor or expelled from Arab countries following the establishment of Israel. And you get in the end of the day in your house, and then you have to cope with all this stuff and also live a good life. And if you're married, you have a family life, your kids who bring something that they paint in school, and that's crazy. That's crazy. And that is why we need another rabbi, another good friend, and another, in the other side, a good psychiatrist or a psychologist to help us, the religious people or the I don't know how to call.
We call it in English clergy.
The clergy side of your life.
Yeah, because also you say that about kids and a wife, and you also have to deal with very mundane things like paying the electric bill and your cable TV is off and you need to call maintenance, and you have a flat tire in your car, and this is something that's very crazy when we have these rampant waves of anti-Semitism and things happening, and you also have to deal, like, you have very big fish to fry, but you also have like the little ones, the remoras of your life, pen for the scuba diving metaphor, but you also have like the little fish in your life that needs tending to, because they are following you, such as paying the electric bill and stuff that you say, do I really need to take care of it? Or you think, this is so mundane and this shouldn't be getting too much of my attention. But these are things that are part of your life as well, and you can't just pretend they're not there. They're very mundane things. Like, will I have, I don't know, enough money to get by to the end of the month and stuff like that. Also, not just as a clergyman, but also as a person who is going through anti-Semitism, and you see things going on and things that are happening in your life. Like, I remember one of my very good friends is living in Israel right now, and we were exchanging messages. He's Brazilian and he moved to Israel like 3 years ago, I think. And we were exchanging messages, and I said, how are things during the Iran-Israel war a few days ago? And I was, how are you doing? How are things with you? How's your husband? How's your kid and stuff? And then I said, I went to the doctor yesterday and he prescribed me some medication for like my high blood sugar, and I don't think I want to take it again. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm boring you with this very like stupid thing about high blood sugar, when you have like missiles flying over your roof. And he said, no, but this is part of life as well. I want to know how you're doing in your everyday life in Brazil as well. I want to know what's going on with you. And this is also like very crazy. And what Tel mentions about having like a good psychologist, analyst, psychiatrist to help you makes a huge deal of difference. And I would say from my personal experience with psychologists, having a Jewish profession, like a Jewish psychologist, psychoanalyst, helps a lot. And I would imagine that for a Black person, having a Black psychoanalyst, or for an LGBT person, having an LGBT professional follow them, makes a huge difference as well.
Absolutely. And Theo, what you're talking about is, some people call it vicarious trauma, secondary traumatic stress. As a healthcare worker, like, we see a lot of traumatic things. Just as, you do rabbinic work, you hear traumatic things. And then, Angela, what you're talking about is like, how do you prioritize, right? Like, some people like, how do you triage goods? Like, just because I have a lot of friends in Israel as well. And it blows my mind how, as they're actively in bunkers multiple times during the day, they're still celebrating these mundane things things which arguably are the most important, but also acknowledging that it's like you can't forget about it, and it's more work. The resiliency there is out of this world, and not to be celebrated, right? What other choice did they have? Yeah, it's important to like, how do we take care of ourselves, and what do we recognize? Like, what are we looking for? And you were talking about it's how to feel seen by a therapist, and a lot of people don't understand anti-Semitism. Like, what is it? Like, I think we could all agree. We can go on like these very nuanced and like, what is anti-Semitism? We can all agree anti-Semitism is some form of discrimination because we are Jewish. Like very, very simply, and that manifests in many different ways. I heard a rabbi here, like, who's talking about social justice, and their statement was, someone saying free Palestine is not anti-Semitic. Someone saying free Palestine because they see a group of Jews crossing the street and they screaming at them, that's anti-Semitic because they're doing it because they're Jewish. And I'm just like, wow, that is so easy to understand. Yes, because I'm Jewish, it's this thing. And we get lost. We tend to get lost in the details. And like, that's politics, that's geopolitics, there's so many factors there. People have been doing this longer than all of us have been alive. And we still don't have an answer. What we're talking about today is anti-Semitism for the self. So how do you identify like how it's affecting you? I'm happy to talk about that. Like how does it manifest? How does it affect mental health? But I'm asking you, as a host, like, how can we, is that something you want me to talk about? How do we open it into that?
I think a good start would be, how do you recognize it? Since like this example you gave was quite good. Someone saying free Palestine just out in the street is not anti-Semitic. But if you're Jewish and you hear that, then you feel it's anti-Semitic. But why? And how do you recognize it as anti-Semitic? And I think the three of us have seen it happen in your very own presence.
Absolutely. And it's like, if someone is yelling at me, free Palestine, the second they found out I was Jewish, not only does it hurt, but then you feel something differently. You feel exposed. Like, my experience after October 7th, my life changed. I'm a US Army veteran. I was born into this country. Like, my story is very, for me, like, my mom wanted to give us the American dream. And my goal was to join the army after college and give back, right? Very proud Jew. First degree was in Jewish studies, worked at conservative Muslim summer camps in North America. It wasn't until October 7th that I felt outwardly like a Jew, where, I'm Salvadoran. So, and that's a whole nother thing to unpack, right? Like, I don't have a choice of what I look like, depending on the spaces, but I have a mezuzah on my door that it faces the street. I walk around with Judaica, like on Shabbat, I wear kippot, and like, it's just, I'm very quote unquote Jewish, like it's on certain occasions. So now I'm walking around, I was like, I'm aware of my Jewish symbolism and I'm scared. I'm having to worry about it. And in my head, I was like, wow, whether you agree with ideology or not, like, this is what our Orthodox brothers and sisters feel like every day. They can't hide their Judaism because they wear it overtly. So now it hit me. I was like, I fought for this country and I'm scared that something would happen to me. I'm worried that someone's going to knock on my door because 2 kilometers from where I lived, someone broke into a home because they saw a mezuzah, and the father of the family had to push him out and fight him out. Like, this is real. So I'm feeling it. I was like, me being Jewish scares me. People knowing that I'm Jewish makes me worried. So you're seeing people hide their Judaica. You're seeing people take down their mezuzah. I'm a Zionist, and that also a whole nother conversation, right? Like, what is Zionism? Not for this podcast, but I believe in the right to self-determination, right? Like the Jewish state. And me wondering, like, if I'm in a cab ride on the way to the airport, am I safe when I'm not driving? So all these things, and I think for me, it's about the safety, and not the extreme safe of like life or death. It can be, but even safety of the second you find out I'm Jewish during this conversation, it is a safe space for safe dialogue. Do you see me as a person, or when you add the label Jewish to it, I'm no longer a person? It's dehumanizing. And that feeling of not feeling human is gut-wrenching. It is painful. You recognize in that moment that you don't see me as a person, you see me as a Jew. And Jew, what you think Jew is, not the beauty that we all know what it means to be Jewish. And that, even now, like, it's just so, I feel it right here, right now.
And as you were speaking, I'm sorry, as you were talking about that, I think I could connect to a lot of that. And what does it feel to be seen as a Brazilian woman outside of Brazil? If there are any fellow Latina women listening to this podcast, I believe you can relate to that as well. The minute you're outside your country and a man realizes you're a Latina woman, you are a piece of me. meat at a butcher's. This is insane. And
there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, there is a lot to unpack. But I think what you are describing is what I've felt as a Brazilian woman many times when I traveled abroad.
Part of the work that we do at Jutina Eco is like having these conversations and educating people in North America what it means to be a Latin Jew, because Latin Jewry is unique. And then you don't get to choose how people see you in that moment, right? You're outed as a Jew. You're outed, quote unquote, as a Brazilian. And it's unfair that you're treated differently based on how that happens. In the context of this conversation of being Jewish, it's your example of like being seen as a Latina woman and as a piece of me. That's fetishization. As it comes to being Jewish, it's dehumanization. I don't have a right to live in your eyes. Like, you feel that. And how does that manifest, right? Like, how does that manifest in the body? Like, we started off with the story of like that chest pain. It manifests in a way. And I'm going to say, before I start, like, this isn't medical advice, but this is how we make diagnoses, or these are just symptoms that show up that you can look up online. You can go to your medical health professional. There's differences in therapists, in psychologists or psychoanalysts and psychiatrists. But how does it recognize, right? Like some common symptoms of depression are having disturbances in your sleep. You're sleeping too much or you're not sleeping enough. Some people after October 7th, they noticed maybe I'm sleeping in more. I'm less motivated to do things. I'm having struggle concentrating on normal tasks that I have to do. I'm feeling feelings of guilt or hopelessness, however that manifests for you. My energy levels are either super up or super down. Like, I'm super low energy. I have an inability to enjoy the things I used to enjoy. My appetites change. I'm eating too much or I'm just eating a lot less. And for some people, it's having suicidal thoughts, and that doesn't always mean if like, I want to end my life right now. It could be, it's like, I don't really feel like living right now. And that's more of it. What I hear is, I want this pain to go away. That's the downside, then there's anxiety. What does anxiety look like? Anxiety can look like muscle tension or having irritability, being more irritable, being a sense of just having restless energy and your attention not being able to focus. And then there's PTSD, especially if you experience anti-Semitism or you witness it, secondary trauma. Maybe you're having memories, you're having nightmares, you're having flashbacks, you're having ruminating thoughts of like this thing, like, why do I keep thinking about this thing that's keeping me awake at night? So those are some ways that it can manifest. And I can't speak for both of you, but people that I've spoken to, something happened after October 7th. For some people, the status quo changed. Like, things were just different. Like, I won't say that anti-Semitism wasn't here. I just think that October 7th was when the dam burst, and now it was out and people were very much empowered. And we're seeing it through policy. We're seeing it through rhetoric. We're seeing it internationally. And that's frightening. And it can cause those symptoms. And, what can we do? Like, what do we do? I'm a firm believer that you can't put a Band-Aid on something over and over again, right? Like, but there's certain things you can do. Like, we can't, the three of us, I wish we could. The three of us, I wish we could end anti-Semitism. That's the ultimate cure. Bezat Hashem, we live a lifetime where it's not here, but you're doing the work, by the way. And I appreciate both of you for doing that work. But having this conversation is a part of that. And so what can we do as individuals? So some of the symptoms I described, if you're curious, we live in the age of information. Am I experiencing some of these symptoms? And then the next question one should ask themselves is this affecting my ability to function in my day-to-day life? That's when you start, that's when you make the decision, like, are there things I could do on my own, or do I need professional help? Things we could do on our own, we call them protective factors. There's community, and community is huge. Community looks like something for different people, whether it's meeting with friends, having coffee, attending conversations, attending conferences. Like, it's community is whatever you have it, but specifically the Jewish community could be going to the synagogue, could be just doing Jewish things, could be attending Jewish rituals, wearing Judaica. It's different. Like, feeling a part of a community does something. Taking care of your health and your diet. Some of these symptoms could present as deficiencies in vitamin D or health issues such as something having to do with your metabolic syndrome. So being mindful of what you're eating, exercising, like doing the right things, right, that we're told to do and we're always not the best at, but that's something we can do. Practicing mindfulness, family, and not everyone has family, seeing what we can do. And then that is just the health side, right? It's like a trifecta. Then there's the mental health, and then there's the spiritual health. The spiritual health is, that's sales department. On my side, it's the mental health. And the mental health comes when it's affecting your ability to function. And that's when you're seeing these symptoms, especially if you're having thoughts of suicide, that's when you seek help.
So I'd like to ask Tao, as a person, as a rabbi, as someone who, accommodates people, embraces people who are seeking this kind of advice. What would you, as clergy, what would you recommend to a person? How would you handle that?
I think first thing we need to do is listening to its core. What's being said here? You don't have a magical word. You don't have a magical psalm. Oh, read the Tehillim. That's not going to work. But you see, in some cases, that actually can work as a helper, as a helping hand, as an anchor. You need an anchor helping you through the day. Okay. And besides that, we always advise people to look for help from a professional way. So I can be there to listen, to respond, to relate, to ask, how is this Jewish experience of living a Jewish life, how this experience has been throughout his life, to bring some good memories up, to show that Judaism is actually beautiful and it's not a bad word. You don't have to feel ashamed of being Jewish, but I can understand that feeling of being cursed when people talk to you, when people dehumanize you through the very thing that makes you human at its best. That's Judaism. So that feeling, I can relate to that. And I'm here to support you. But to deal with that, that's not my place. I have to advise you to look for professional help. But yeah, you must be sure that Judaism is beautiful. Your Jewish experience in life is beautiful. And if you have some prayer, some psalm, some song, Hebrew song that brings you this good feeling of being Jewish, so you can, and you have to address that every day. If that is helping you every day to sing, I don't know, okay, that's your psalm. It helps you to say Hashkivenu prayer before going to sleep. So do this, do that. Please do that. You must assure yourself that you know that it helps you to bring some balance, to be this anchor you need, but you need to be sure that's not gonna solve the problem, because the problem isn't in you, isn't inside you. The problem isn't you. The problem is outside. And for that, you need to seek for professional help.
I may add, because that was beautiful, and I completely agree. And I think something I wish I could have said earlier is that we're asking people to knock on our door. We're asking people to go to the rabbi, and I want to invite any listener to hear that we want you to knock. We want to help you. It's what we do. There is no shame in talking about this. Mental health is something that has been shamed in so many cultures, especially in Latin America and the United States. We don't talk about it enough. It's like, oh, our generation is weak. It's like, no, our generation has access to more information than any generation previous to it. Angela, we talked about this before. It's like you and I could spend the next hour just going through different news sites, checking up on like the images of my friend in Israel, all these destroyed buildings. And then there's protests in LA of Latino people getting rounded up. And then I'm seeing at the politics of Brazil's chicken. It's like, all right, now I'm going to eat cereal. That's not normal. That's not normal. And so mental health is not something to be ashamed of. We go to the gym, some people, or we do Pilates, or we take a walk to take care of ourselves. Mental health is that new normal, not because we're weak, but because we deal with more complex challenges. We don't go to the rabbi at the feeling of shame if I need help. We go to the rabbi because, Rabbi, I don't really know what to do right now. And what you're talking about is the beauty of being Jewish. Being Jewish looks different for so many people, especially Latin Jews. We have this superpower of intersectionality where we can understand multiple truths at once. It's a gift, and it weighs heavy on us because people people don't see us unless we're among ourselves. It's very hard. And that Jewish pride, being Jewish is beautiful. Like there's a reason, like we are the people that are still here, that we're having this conversation. Can you imagine your ancestors being like, oh yeah, my great grandchild is going to have a podcast in Brazil. Like, I don't know where your family's from, but like, can you, what a beautiful thing that this is happening. And being Jewish is beautiful. Judaism is not a cookie cutter one way thing. Our job is to make it inviting. I think the job for any listener is to understand that we're here. That is our role, to help and to see you and to help guide you in whatever that is, whether it's professional mental health, whether it's sitting with the rabbis and finding what community looks like for you in Judaism.
And I think what you're saying, it makes a lot of sense. I've been talking to a lot of friends about that. As Jews, we acknowledge we're different. And we know, like, not just different in, Sephardic, Ashkenazi, Mizrahi, Latin American, European, North American, I don't know, Israeli Jews. And no, even inside the Brazilian Ashkenazi community in São Paulo, we have so many differences and stuff that we don't see eye to eye, and stuff that like, Jews do that, because people like to think of Jews as like a monolith. Jews do that. Jews don't do that. And it's very funny because sometimes like no one knows best what a Jew does or doesn't do than a goy. Like a goy is the person who knows exactly what a Jew does and a Jew doesn't. Like they will see, I don't know, I have tattoos and they'll say, oh, but you have tattoos, but Jews don't have tattoos, so you're not Jewish. I am, very much so. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was like, I know rabbis with tattoos.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I still am. It's like, I'm not going to be excommunicated. Oh, but what happens if you eat pork? I digest it.
That's great. Yeah, you do that.
I digest it, It's like, unless I have an allergy, my body is not going to have an adverse reaction to any kind of food. Like, Jews are not forbidden to eat chili. My body forbids me, I eat chili. I feel terrible.
You're going to have a bad time.
Exactly, if I eat chili. And I lived in Thailand for a year, avoiding chili. So it is, unless I wanted to feel horrible and not wake up to go to work on the next day, like I had to avoid. But what happens if I eat anything that the Torah forbids? Shrimp, I digest it. But people will come and say, oh, you're not Jewish because you're eating this, or because you have a tattoo, or you're not Jewish enough because you're not married to a Jewish man, or you don't wear a wig, or I don't know. But I am, very much so.
Absolutely. And these are narratives.
Yeah, but a lot of goyim feel it's their place to tell me whether I'm Jewish or not, or how Jewish I am. And I usually call them like the sommelier goys, because they have like they know the terroir of every Jew, and they know what kind of like notes and aftertaste we have on them. It's insane. And that what Tara was saying, like being Jewish is amazing, it's beautiful, and it's different for everybody. Like Tara and I have like different views on things, and that doesn't make us less Jews, like and it doesn't make us not friends. On the contrary,
it brings you together.
Exactly, it brings us together. And with many of my Jewish friends, it brings us together. And we talk about a lot of non-Jewish things as well. And I think that's important as well inside and in the building of the Jewish community, is that we have other points of connection that aren't specifically Jewish. So as I was talking about at the beginning of the episode, we both like Brazilian soap operas very much. So this is something we talk about quite often, other than Judaism. And I don't know, food and music. We also like Brazilian country music. We talk about that a lot. And if any of you listeners don't know Brazilian country music, it's awesome. You should give it a try.
Hilarious. And what you're talking about is narratives. And this is what makes anti-Semitism just exhausting isn't the right word. It's just like debilitating. narratives are imposed on us. And then to be a Latin Jew, I think you're constantly explaining what it means to be a Brazilian Jew, like specifically your situation. And sometimes, at least my experience is like, I'm also the son of an immigrant. I was usually in the middle where in some situations I wasn't Jewish enough and I had to explain how or why I was Jewish. In other situations, I wasn't American enough and I had to explain like, no, I am American. I'm a proud American. And that explanation is constant because we're fighting these narratives. I think what we're striving to do here is to own our stories, our Jewish story. We are the bearers of our story. And doing that is having this conversations like this, identifying like how can we help ourselves within our community and stay connected, because part of this is also education. You know, I would hope someone who's not Jewish listens to this in case they're ever curious, because it will be in the ether. But that is our story. Like, how do we overcome this? Because we will overcome it. Like, there's no doubt about it. We will overcome it. Getting there is just a little tricky, and it's a little painful and very humbling, but we're going to do it, and we're doing it right now.
Yeah. What you say is like, I'm not Jewish enough, I'm not Brazilian enough, and then the narratives. This is something that's quite funny because, well, if anyone wants to know what I look like, we can go to our Instagram page at Torá com Fritas. It's going to be on the episode description. I have very, very light skin. I'm like super white, and I've had many times people come ask me where I'm from, and I'll say, oh, I'm from São Paulo, Brazil. And they go, look, but you're so white. And I say, yes. And my passport still reads Brazil. That's the only passport I hold. I'm sorry, I don't look up to your standards. Like, I'm not up to what you thought I would be. But yeah, and I don't know how to samba either.
I think that speaks to the beautiful tapestry of what it means to be a Latin Jew and why anti-Semitism is very unique in this situation, right? Because you're not only dealing with that, you're dealing with like how that manifests in each different region, specifically like where you're at, Brazil. You know, we have it here in the United States. They're not the same. There's similarities, but it's heavy.
Yeah. And other than this, like we've talked about how to recognize and some things that we could do, but what else, like in when it comes to looking for professional help, what can a person do? Like, what does it look like to look for professional help?
So I'm not too familiar with the healthcare system in Brazil. I just know that you have it. I can't say that about my country. I believe it. But what I will say...
And it's universal. Americans who are in Brazil can get vaccinations and do not have to pay for it.
And because of this, it'll be a huge wave. I will say that professional help looks like seeking someone, usually that's licensed. In the United States, we have therapists, and there's many kinds of therapists, but they have a license. Either they're social workers, they're marriage family therapists, and they're licensed to conduct therapy, right? They study a theory of kind of therapy, and there's many other schools of thought. So that's one way. Talk therapy. Psychologists, I would say psychologists are their doctorate level psychologists who are the ones who work with these theories. I wouldn't say that therapists work beneath them, but they do a lot of diagnosing. They're the subject matter experts in psychology, where therapists are the subject matter experts in conducting therapy. So psychologists can conduct therapy to help process these feelings. And then there's psychiatrists. Psychiatrists are usually trained physicians, medical doctors who specialize in the field of psychiatry, which is mental health medicine. They can also conduct therapy and they can prescribe medications. So people say, like, if I go to therapy, like, I'm crazy. No, a therapist is your coach. It's an objective outside party who helps you work through your feelings, through whatever you're working against, to help you get to a state of healthiness, specifically mental health, right? No shame in feeling depression, anxiety, PTSD, or any form of mental illness because of the effects of anti-Semitism. That's a very human experience. That's your body and soul reacting to a very ancient, harsh pain. We should not be shaming people seeking help. We should be encouraging people to seek help, whatever that looks like. Right? And I would also add that like clergy is a part of that too. I won't say that, at least in the US, rabbis are trained mental health professionals, but they are trained to have pastoral conversations. They're trained to be spiritual counselors. So there is overlap and they're very good at it. And it looks different for folks. For some people, a psychiatrist will work. For some person, a therapist or having that clergy. It's seeking that help and talking about it. And if even seeking professional help, if it's outside one's means, it's having this conversation. Group therapy is another thing, attending groups and talking about it. The week of October 7th, I went to an organization here, which is affiliated with Moshe House for young Jews. It's called Base LA. And they had a vigil, and it was Jews in their 20s and 30s. And we just sat down and we just talked about what we're feeling. That is mental health.
Great. In Brazil, we have like licensed professionals. As far as I know, you have psychiatrists work the same way as you described it as in America. So trained physicians and who can prescribe medicine and conduct therapy. And then you have psychologists. It's people who go to psychology, like they study psychology in university, and psychoanalysts. What I know is like psychoanalysts, they need not to study psychology in university. They can have a degree in something else, but they have been trained in psychoanalysis for a number of years. I don't know, anything between 2 and 4, and they need to like have interns and start seeing people, like assisting people, and then they are supervised by someone who's been a psychoanalyst for a longer period of time, so they can discuss cases and stuff. So I think these are amongst the licensed professionals one could look. And we do have free health care system in Brazil, but as far as I'm concerned about mental health, it's not very easy to have that. Like you wouldn't necessarily like walk into a health clinic, a public health clinic, and say, oh, I'd like to see the analyst now. And they'll say, oh, of course, just wait for 10 minutes and he'll see you. But I know it's available for people. I don't know how quickly it happens. And if for instance, I think you are probably assigned a therapist. And if you don't really connect with that person, I don't know what it's like to find someone else. Because this is something that's very important in a mental health process when you find a professional. It's that you connect with that person. Because if from the start you don't really like the person that was assigned to you, it's like you're not going to feel like opening up to someone who you're not very fond of. So I know you can do that privately, and in a private system, then you have it all price ranges. From like people who do, they say like social prices, they will call it in Portuguese, which is like a lot cheaper than what it would ordinarily cost, for like a third of the price or half the price. And some places offer, like, I know universities have it for free, in a sense that like the students will be assisting you under the supervision of the professors. But
of course, they're during the intern hours.
Yeah, exactly. You have students doing that. And I know there is a place in São Paulo, which is where we are, called Casa do Povo. We have an episode on them. It's a center in Bom Retiro, which is a neighborhood in São Paulo. It's a Jewish center. So they have many activities going on. And also they have, I think it's called a free clinic, a free therapy clinic that happens once a week, and it's for free. And I think it's like first come, first served. I don't know if you can schedule an appointment, but you can look them up online. Like they have that. And if you are willing, like if you have the means to afford it, then you have it at all price ranges and all sorts of professionals in São Paulo. And we do have, I don't know, maybe because Freud was Jewish, but we do have like many psychoanalysts and psychologists who are Jewish. It's not difficult to find a Jewish psychoanalyst or psychologist or psychiatrist, I don't know, in São Paulo at least. It's not very hard. You don't have to look much for it.
I love that. And I would also encourage folks to like just check with their local, synagogue or Jewish federation or like Jewish organization of their community. I have to, like you just said it. I was like, I have to believe that there's relationships within the community because of these real world issues. Like what better place to refer you than your own community?
Yeah, I think that's great. And something that's like more common nowadays as well is that you can do that online.
Mm-hmm. Telehealth.
Yeah, you can have like online sessions. So that's also helpful. If, I don't know, if you are Jewish Jewish and you are living in a place where there aren't many Jews and you would like to have like a Jewish psychologist, you can have online sessions. Or even if you're living abroad and you want to be assisted in Portuguese, or if you're living in Brazil and you want to do it in English, so you can like have it online.
And I think I have a question for Theo. Just if people are looking for that clergy support, for some people maybe who've never been to like the synagogue, and I've been to your synagogue, like, it's huge. It's like for some people that could be scary. If anyone like that is listening, what would you want them to know to be like to help them feel more invited or welcome, to feel safe to approach someone like you who's seeking that help?
That's a hard question because it's not so common that people who never attend synagogue really thinks about going to a rabbi and to have a word with a rabbi. So that's not very common, but it happens. I would say that in Israel, this happens a little bit more. And in general, people don't go to the synagogue, but they meet this person in the building or in the bus and start to engage in a conversation. And then, surprise, surprise, he's a rabbi. And that's quite of a magical thing that happens there, because you usually hear something like, oh, I didn't know that a rabbi could be so open, that a rabbi understands things outside Torah. And so that's not anti-Semitism, but it causes this strange feeling. How the hell a Jew meets another Jewish person who is a rabbi and says to the rabbi, wow, you're really different. Different from what? You never attend synagogue. You don't know any rabbi. So I'm the first one, and then I'm different. Out of a sudden, I'm different. I'm not different. I'm not different. A different rabbi. Most rabbis are more open than people think. And even within Orthodox rabbis, and I know a Satmar rabbi in Brazil, and we engaged in a conversation in a wedding, and suddenly he tells me, and started to talk about conversion, how it is in my community, how it is in his community. In Brazil, in general, Orthodox rabbis don't perform conversions, but he is one of those who help people to get through all the Orthodox bureaucracy and to travel abroad to get a conversion and everything. And he came to me and said, I'm a Satmar, but I am very different kind of rabbi. And I said, what is this supposed to mean? That's the thing. It's not so common that people who don't attend synagogues to come to a rabbi to seek for some advice and everything. But it happens. It happens in bar mitzvah celebrations. After the celebration, you always have those people who come to the rabbi and said, wow, that's the first time I heard something nice about this and that. And that's the first time. Wow, I feel like coming back. So come back, please. Come back, please. And then we start this relationship. Back to the question, when this indeed happens, it's almost a disconnection, because this person is a Jew, and then that he doesn't attend synagogue, but you see him coming through the synagogue doors to talk to you, and he wants to ask you things and to listen to your opinion on this, on that. You feel a little bit odd because you don't actually know what to say, because you're a little bit afraid of frightening him, because you say something a little bit out of this can scare him, and he will not continue in this conversation. So you feel like walking on eggshells. That's the eggshells feeling. You don't know. You're not completely a rabbi when you meet this person. The you are more of another fellow Jew talking about your experiences and opinions, and you don't bring too much. The Torah says, the Talmud says, because when you say these words, people got a little bit indoctrinated, or so yeah, that's
No, thank you. I think the reason I asked is because I imagine there's people who are afraid or who just feel that unless they attend the synagogue, they can't speak to a rabbi. And like, I'm biased. I have many friends who are rabbis. I just live in LA with multiple seminaries, and my partner is a rabbinical student. But yeah, like, it's important. I think that's the main reason I asked, because you do a big job. The power of smicha, I think, and I'll end with this on my end, is because someone gave me an extreme example of like the way they felt after October 7th is that they heard something they were quoting something they heard like during the Holocaust, that when they knocked on our doors, they didn't ask if I was Reform, if I was conservative, if I was Reconstruction, if I was Orthodox. I was Jewish. And like, I think we could all agree that October 7th, unfortunately, like that, it was something that brought us together because it reminded us, yes, we're all Jewish, and Jewish looks different. And you're a part of that chain of resources and help. Like being a rabbi is big in the community. And I think I was asking because maybe some people want to speak to a rabbi, but they're like, I don't belong to that synagogue. I don't pay dues. Can I speak to a rabbi? Because I know many are like you all work very hard, and it's important because like I said, at the end of the day, we're all Jewish.
Wow. I don't know if I have anything else to add to that after everything Theo just said. I think we've covered everything that we wanted to, and then some.
It's a heavy topic. I get it.
Right. Well, I think then we could start wrapping it up. And I would ask Luis if you have, like, usually at the end of every episode, we share like some tips to our listeners. I don't know, a film, a series, a book, or I don't know, something, your YouTube channel, anything you feel could be interesting for people. I wanted to share, just to start that, by sharing a book recommendation. I don't know if Luis has met Uri Lam, who is a fellow friend of us and a rabbi as well at Bethel.
I know who he is.
In São Paulo.
No, I met him. I went to Bethel with Rebecca.
Bethel? Okay.
Rabbi Uri, very sweet. It's very sweet.
He's amazing. And a while ago, he recommended a book. He was on the podcast and he recommended a book. So I'm going to replicate his recommendation. It's a book by Sarah Hurwitz. It's called Here All Along. And it's like how she rediscovers her Judaism. It's a very interesting book. And she's a good writer. She used to write the speeches of Michelle Obama.
Whoa.
Yeah, I think
that's
she
amazing.
wrote some of Barack Obama's speeches as well, but she really found her voice when she was writing for Michelle. And she's an amazing writer, and the book is very easy to read. It feels like she's talking to you, like it feels like you're having a conversation with her. It's a very nice book about like rediscovering your Judaism. I think it's a very interesting book.
I'm going to cheat because instead of recommending a book, I'm going to recommend a resource.
Okay.
And I'm not being biased because I work for the organization. I'm just very proud of the work we do. Jutina right now is working with like a book specialist, and I think she's from Argentina, and compiling a list of books written by Latin Jews. So if you can, it's on Instagram. There was a recent post with like a list of books if people want to read about Latin Jewish topics written by Latin Jews.
Amazing.
The page it's called Jutina Ico. Like Ico is like short for comunidad and some of the other values, conocer, but it's Jutina Ico on Instagram. And there was a post recently with a list of books that people can, it's a few reels and you can look at it. And it's just interesting because there is a rich history of Latin Jewry written by Latin Jewish artists. And this is part of the work that Jutina is doing.
Great. Now that you mentioned books written by Latino Jews, there is an author I would like to recommend. She doesn't really address Jewish topics in her books, but she was Jewish. Her name was Clarice Lispector. She was born in the Ukraine, but she came to Brazil. She immigrated to Brazil when she was really young, maybe 2-3 years old. old. She was a baby, like very, very young when she immigrated to Brazil. Her name was actually Haya, and then it was changed to Clarice. And she lived in Recife, which is in the north of Brazil, for some time. And then she moved to, I'm going to say it in Portuguese because I refuse to say it in an English accent, but she moved to Rio de Janeiro, the city. And she lived in here for the rest of her life. There is even a statue of her in Rio by the beach where she used to live. And she's one of the best Brazilian writers of all time. Like, she's really good. And she's Jewish. And many people don't know she's Jewish because she didn't talk much about it in her work. Like, you don't really see that in her work. But she was translated into English. I think her most famous book in English is maybe The Hour of the Star.
Hour of the Star.
Yeah, and she's amazing. She's very sensitive.
I guess I could recommend two more. That's amazing. Like you just triggered like memory. Like Jutina also had a recent film festival, and there's a film called Novia que te vea, which is about like the story of like Mexican Jews in Mexico. And this is not a new movie. I think it was in the 80s. And when I saw it, it was just very rich. And another one that I saw is called Adiós Querida, which the author Ruth Behar is the documentary of her journey back to Cuba and visiting because her family's from Cuba. So just different Latin Jewish stories for people to feel connected, because I think Latin Jewish stories aren't told enough. And part of what we're talking about today is about owning our story and getting to know other people like us.
Great. Tao, any recommendations?
I would recommend a book that it's called People Love Dead Jews. Actually, I got to know this book through Angela.
Yes.
That's an amazing book. That's an amazing book. People Love Dead Jews. Reports from a Haunted Present. Dara Horn. That's amazing how he recalls her teenage years, and that's when she got in touch with this perception that people saw her differently because she was a Jew. And from there on, she started to study anti-Semitism and its impacts and this trauma that has been carried on from ages. That's not about the Holocaust trauma. That's one of the most recent ones. But we bear this trauma from a long time now, and she's awesome. That's an awesome book.
Yeah, I got it when I was in LA last year. I bought it. I bought 2 copies, one for myself and one for Theo, when I was in LA last year.
I just added it to my wish list.
It's a great book. It's a great read. And I was going to recommend another one that's called Uncomfortable Conversations with the Jew by Noah Tishby and a man whose name is Emmanuel Acho, A-C-H-O is his last name. I'm not sure I'm saying that correctly, but his name is Emmanuel. And it's an amazing book as well. He's a black man and she's an Israeli Jew, and they're friends and they talk to each other. It's like the book is in like an interview. It reads like an interview, and he asks her about October 7th. So he starts the book saying, on October 6th, 11:30 p.m. I heard the news of what had happened in Israel, and I checked in on Noah to see how she was doing. And then I'd just like to finish the episode quoting Noah, what she says at the beginning of the book. She says to non-Jewish people, stop what you are doing and check on your Jewish friends, which is something that I didn't mention during that episode, but that makes a whole difference to us. When something like that happens, the response that non-Jews gave us, our non-Jewish friends, how they reacted to October 7th. This has had a very big impact on all of us, and a very big thank you from the very bottom of my heart to all the friends who have checked in on us. Especially on Theo when that happened, because he was living in Israel when that happened. And a lot of people reached out to me asking how I was doing and how he was doing. Like, have you heard from him? Do you know what's happened? And one of the friends who checked in on us is an Iranian friend I have in Brazil. She was one of the first persons who checked in on us. She wrote to me, said, Angela, I saw the news. How are you doing? What's going on with you? Are you okay? Is your friend okay? Because because her daughter is our designer, was our graphic designer. She checked in on us. And then when everything happened in Iran this year, I wrote to her and I asked, like, honey, how are you doing? Are you okay? I know she has family in Tehran. How's your family doing? Do you know if everyone's all right? And she replied to me and she said, thank you so much for checking in on me, because most of my Brazilian friends, like people who I see every day, they haven't checked in on me. They know I come from Iran. They know I have family in Tehran, and they haven't checked in on me. So the huge difference it makes when our non-Jewish friends check in on us, like the ones who do, thank you very much for that. It means the world to us. Well, I guess
that's very moving.
Yes.
Very sweet, very moving.
It was amazing. And then, with that in mind, Luis, I would like to thank you so very much for accepting our invitation. It was amazing to have you talk to us and share all your knowledge and your experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's a pleasure. I love that I met you both separately. And then when I realized you're both on I realized you both are on this podcast, and then, you both know my partner. I was like, wow, this is just a beautiful connection, and I'm just happy to just have this conversation. I think we do this for a living. As many people we can reach, just for the sake of even one person, I think we're doing the work. So I appreciate you for the opportunity, both of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Muchas gracias.
Gracias a ustedes. Que se cuiden.
Tudo bien. Bom, então com isso a gente termina por aqui o episódio de hoje do Torá com Fritas. Lembrando que vocês podem sempre entrar em contato com a gente através do nosso e-mail, toracomfritas@gmail.com. Nos seguir nas redes sociais também, Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok, a gente está como @toracomfritas. E o Torá é generosamente mantido pelos ouvintes que apoiam o podcast, e você também pode se tornar um colaborador através de catarse.me/toracomfritas ou orelo.cc/toracomfritas. Nós também recebemos apoio do ISGAP, The Institute for the Study of Global Antisemitism and Policy. Para não perderem um episódio, é só assinar o nosso feed no seu tocador de podcasts preferido ou nos seguir no YouTube. Torá com Fritas é feito pela Angela Goldstein e pelo Theo Hotz, que são amigos, idealizadores e apresentadores do podcast. O Alu é o nosso editor de som e o intérprete da nossa música de abertura. Para entrar em contato com ele, é só procurar no Insta @alusanto. E a nossa identidade visual é da Maia Batalha. Muito obrigada a todo mundo que nos ouviu até agora.